They exiled Earth. Now humanity dominates the stars. Part 1. The Exile. The message came on a Tuesday. All across Earth, screens flickered and changed to show the same image. A tall, gray-skinned being with large black eyes. Humans everywhere. Stopped and stared. "People of Earth," the alien said in perfect English. "We are the Galactic Assembly. We have watched your world for many years. We now extend our greetings." In New York, Jack Harmon sat in his apartment, mouth open in shock. Like millions of others, he had always believed aliens existed, but believing and seeing were very different things. The government called Jack 3 hours later. As one of Earth's top engineers and a skilled speaker, they needed him at the emergency meeting. World leaders were gathering to discuss how to respond to the aliens who now orbited Earth in ships larger than cities. Jack arrived at the United Nations building as the sun set. Security guards rushed him through empty hallways to a room filled with nervous officials. "The aliens want to meet tomorrow," the president said. "They've requested 10 representatives. You're one of them, Harmon." Jack barely slept that night. He wondered what the aliens wanted. Trade? Knowledge? Land? The next morning, as he boarded the helicopter that would take him to the meeting point, he felt hope mixed with fear. The alien ship hovered above Central Park. A beam of blue light touched the ground, and Jack, along with 9 other humans, walked into it. They floated upward into an opening in the massive ship. Inside, they met the Vornax, tall, thin aliens with gray skin and 4 long fingers on each hand. The alien who seemed to be the leader stepped forward. "I am High Coordinator Vextor," it said. "We welcome you to the assembly." For 6 days, the humans talked with the aliens. They learned about the Galactic Assembly, a group of 23 intelligent species who worked together. They shared information about Earth. The aliens seemed most interested in human history, especially wars and how quickly humans developed technology. On the 7th day, everything changed. "We have made our decision," Vextor announced. "Humans will not be permitted to join the assembly at this time." A murmur ran through the human delegation. Furthermore, Vextor continued, "Humanity must remain within its solar system. You may not travel beyond the orbit of Mars. This restriction is permanent." Jack stepped forward. "Why?" "We've shown we can be peaceful. We have much to offer the assembly." Vextor's black eyes seemed to look through Jack rather than at him. "Our analysis shows that humans are too unpredictable, too dangerous. Your species advances too quickly and fights too easily. The assembly has decided." "You can't trap us in our own solar system," Jack argued. "That's not fair to future generations." The alien made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "The decision is final." When the human representatives returned to Earth, they brought terrible news. The world's governments argued about what to do. Some wanted to fight, though the alien technology was far beyond Earth's. Others wanted to negotiate further. Before they could decide, the assembly acted. 3 weeks after the first contact, thousands of enormous ships appeared in Earth's atmosphere. From them came a message. "For the safety of the galaxy, and for your own development, we have selected 80% of Earth's population for relocation." Panic swept across the planet. In every city, beams of light took people from streets, from homes, from everywhere. The assembly ships collected humans by the millions. Jack watched from the roof of his building as people floated up into the ships. He tried to call the president, anyone who might help, but communications were down. When the blue light surrounded him, he fought against it but couldn't move. Inside the ship, he found himself in a vast room with thousands of other confused, frightened humans. Children cried for parents. Parents searched desperately for children. The ships had split families, apart without care. Lisa Doyle, a physicist from Boston, stood nearby. She had been working in her lab when the light took her. "Where are they taking us?" she asked Jack, her voice shaking. "I don't know," he answered honestly. Days passed on the ship. The aliens provided food and water, but no information. Through Whispered conversations, Jack learned that Lisa had been developing quantum communication technology before she was taken. My research, she told him quietly. It was about sending messages instantly across any distance. We were close to a breakthrough. Jack thought about this. If humans across the galaxy could communicate, maybe they could organize. Maybe they could find a way back home. A week into the journey, Jack found Sam Rivera, a communications specialist, who had worked for the military. Together with Lisa, they formed a plan. The aliens are moving us to different planets, Sam explained. I've overheard them talking. They're spreading humans thin so we can't work together. Can we use your quantum communication idea? Jack asked Lisa. She bit her lip. Maybe, but I need equipment. Sam smiled for the first time since being taken. I think I can help with that. I've been collecting things the aliens don't know. I have. The ship Lisa traveled on reached its destination after 3 weeks. Through the windows, she saw a rocky red planet orbiting a distant sun. The aliens called it Proxima b, as she and thousands of other humans were moved to the surface. She kept the small device Sam had built hidden in her shoe. It wasn't much, just a receiver for now. But it was a start. The aliens had built basic shelters and provided some tools, but it was clear they expected humans to mostly fend for themselves. Proxima b was rich in minerals but poor in everything else. The air was thin, the water buried deep, and the days were long and hot. Lisa worked in the mines by day like most of the humans. By night, she secretly worked on improving Sam's device. 2 months after arrival, it buzzed in her hands. A message had come through. From another world. From Jack. We are not forgotten. The message read, Earth remembers. Stay strong. Build. Learn. Connect. We will find our way back together. Lisa looked up at the strange stars above this alien world. Somewhere out there, across the vast emptiness of space, other humans were looking at different stars. All of them exiled. All of them separated, but not for long. She sent back a simple reply. Message received. We are not defeated. Back on Earth, the remaining humans lived under the watchful eyes of assembly monitors. The aliens had taken the brightest minds, the strongest workers, the youngest and healthiest. They claimed it was for humanity's own good, to prevent them from becoming a threat while giving them a chance to develop under supervision. Those left behind knew better. This wasn't protection. It was punishment. It was exile. But what the assembly didn't understand was that humans had always thrived against the odds. Separated across the stars, humanity would not fade away. They would adapt. They would grow stronger. And one day, they would return. They exiled Earth. Now humanity dominates the stars. Part 2. Adaptation and Discovery. 50 years passed since the exile. Across the galaxy, on thousands of different worlds, humans adapted and survived. On the frozen planet of Epsilon Eridani, Frank Miller walked through the underground city his people had built. The surface above was covered in ice and swept by winds cold enough to freeze flesh in seconds. When the assembly ships had first dropped humans here, few thought they would survive a year. Now, a thriving community of 30,000 lived beneath the ice. Frank entered the main engineering hall where his team worked. They had mastered thermal technology beyond anything the assembly possessed. By tapping the planet's core heat and using materials found only on this world, they created systems that kept them warm and powered their city. How are the new heat exchangers working? Frank asked his assistant. Better than expected, she replied. 30% more efficient than the old ones. Frank smiled. The assembly had meant this place to be a prison. Instead, it had become a school. Necessity had made the humans of Epsilon Eridani experts in surviving extreme cold. Knowledge they kept secret from their alien overseers. Across the stars on the high-gravity world of Tau Ceti, Diane Brooks finished her daily run. At twice Earth's gravity, simply walking was hard work for most residents. But Diane's generation, born on this heavy world, had developed stronger bones and muscles. Their bodies had changed to match their environment. As the colony's lead geneticist, Diane studied these adaptations. The assembly monitors allowed this research because they thought it merely helped humans survive. They didn't realize Diane was documenting how quickly humans could evolve. The third-generation children show even more adaptation, her colleague noted, showing her the latest test results. Their heart efficiency is remarkable. Diane nodded. And the aliens can barely move around here even with their mechanical aids. This was their advantage. The assembly had placed humans on worlds they themselves found uncomfortable, thinking it would keep them weak. They didn't understand human resilience. Back on Earth, the remaining population lived under strict assembly, control, or so it appeared. Beneath the old city of Atlanta, Zoe Hammond made her way through secret tunnels to an underground lab. Her grandmother had been part of the first resistance, and now Zoe carried on that work. The lab was filled with equipment, salvaged or built from scratch over decades. "Any response from the Proxima colonies?" she asked as she entered. Her team member nodded. Lisa Doyle's great-nephew sent the test results. The neural pattern experiment worked. This was their most important discovery. Humans had found that their brains interacted with certain exotic particles in ways the aliens could not detect or copy. These particles, which they named psi waves, could be detected by specially built receivers. It allowed for communication. The assembly couldn't intercept. More importantly, humans could influence these particles with their thoughts. Not in a dramatic way, but enough to create patterns, to send messages, to connect. "And the assembly has no idea?" Zoe asked. "None. Their biology doesn't register these particles at all. To them, it's just background radiation." Zoe smiled. A century of monitoring humans, and the assembly had missed their greatest ability. Another part of the galaxy, Greg Winters piloted his small trading ship between assembly worlds. He was one of the few humans granted permission to travel. The assembly had learned that humans had skills useful for commerce, and a small number were allowed to work within their strictly controlled trade network. Greg's current cargo was medical, supplies bound for an assembly outpost near the galactic core. The route took him past an old system with a dead star. Something on his sensors caught his attention, an unusual reading coming from an airless moon. He shouldn't stop. His schedule allowed no delays. But curiosity, that human trait the assembly, both valued and feared, got the better of him. On the moon's surface, Greg found a structure half buried in dust. It was not made by the assembly or any species he recognized. Inside, protected from time by an energy field, was what looked like a library. Not of books or data chips, but crystal columns that projected images when he approached. The images showed the galaxy as it was millions of years ago. They showed a species, not human, but somehow familiar, building devices across the stars. And they showed a prediction, a species that would one day unite the galaxy through a unique ability to connect minds and matter. As Greg watched, the images shifted to show creatures that looked exactly like humans. An alert from his ship interrupted his exploration. He had to leave, but not before taking one small crystal that had fallen from its column. Back on his ship, Greg studied the crystal. It was ancient technology, far older than the assembly itself. If his understanding was correct, the Vornak's fear of humans was based on an ancient prediction that humans possessed some quality that could change the galaxy forever. They hadn't exiled humans out of cruelty, but out of fear, dispersing them to prevent cooperation while studying them. What the assembly didn't know was that spreading humans across thousands of worlds had only accelerated their adaptation and evolution. Each colony faced different challenges, developed different solutions, and shared them through the growing Psi-Wave network. Greg carefully encrypted a message and sent it through the hidden quantum channel Sam Rivera's descendants had perfected. The other traders would pass it along, world to world, until it reached Earth and the various human colonies. "I found proof of why they fear us," he wrote. "They're following a prophecy from a civilization older than their own. We have an ability they don't understand, something to do with connecting through thought. They're watching for it, which means we must develop it in secret." As his ship rejoined the trade routes, Greg looked out at the stars. His discovery explained so much. The assembly had kept humans apart because together, they might access abilities the ancient race had foreseen. The irony wasn't lost on him. In trying to prevent humans from fulfilling the prophecy, the assembly had placed them in exactly the conditions needed to develop these abilities faster. Hardship, adaptation, and the deep need to connect across vast distances had awakened something dormant in human biology. The assembly thought they were containing a threat. Instead, they were helping it grow stronger. With each passing year, the human network expanded. From Earth to the farthest colonies, SI wave technology improved. And unknown to their alien overseers, humanity was changing in ways no one could have predicted. The exile meant to keep humanity weak had instead spread them among the stars, where they grew stronger than they ever could have on Earth alone. They exiled Earth. Now humanity dominates the stars. Part 3. The silent revolution. A century had passed since the assembly scattered humans across the galaxy. What began as exile had transformed into something the aliens never expected. Humans had become essential to the assembly's economy and infrastructure. On the massive shipyard orbiting Vega, Karen Phillips adjusted her work suit and floated toward the engine section of an assembly cruiser. As senior technician, she supervised repairs on the most important ships in the fleet. The Vornax engineers trusted her completely. They didn't know that Karen had been making small modifications to every ship she worked on for the past 15 years. Nothing that would be noticed during normal inspections, just slight improvements to efficiency, subtle changes to how systems connected. "Finishing up Section 12 today?" asked her Vornax supervisor through the comm system. "Yes, Director," Karen replied. "We'll be complete before the next shift." As she worked, Karen sent signals through her neural implant, a technology all humans now carried but kept hidden from the assembly. The implant connected her to what humans called the human collective, a vast network linking people across thousands of worlds. Unlike what the aliens feared, it wasn't a hive mind. Humans kept their individuality. The network simply allowed instant communication and cooperation that the assembly could not detect. Through this network, Karen received design improvements from human engineers on 50 different worlds. She incorporated these into her work, making each ship slightly better than its specifications. The changes were too small to notice individually, but together they created vessels that were stronger, faster, and more efficient than the assembly realized. On the agricultural world of New Eden, Alan Foster walked through fields of golden grain that stretched to the horizon. The planet had been a barren rock when humans arrived. Now it fed millions. Alan stopped to examine a new variety of wheat his team had developed. To the assembly monitors who occasionally visited, it was simply another food crop. They didn't know this plant produced compounds that could be refined into advanced fuel systems. The latest harvest exceeded projections by 20%, his assistant reported. Alan nodded. "Send word to the processing centers. Make sure the special varieties are handled according to protocol." Protocol was their code for separating out the plants that produced the fuel compounds. These would be processed in secret facilities built beneath the farming communities. The assembly received their expected food shipments and never questioned what else might be happening on this remote agricultural world. Across the galaxy, on 1,000 different planets, humans appeared to be model citizens of the assembly. They worked, they obeyed the rules, they caused no trouble. The assembly had relaxed their monitoring over the decades, believing the human problem had been solved. What they didn't see was the silent revolution happening everywhere humans lived. The borders of assembly space faced a new threat. The Xerax, a militant species from beyond the edge of known space, had begun attacking outlying systems. Their ships were powerful, their technology nearly equal to the assembly's own. On the border station Watchpoint 7, Commander Vex Lin of the Vornax received reports of another Xerax incursion. "Deploy defensive fleet," he ordered. Standard pattern. The battle that followed shocked everyone except the humans who served on the station. Assembly ships performed 30% better than their specifications predicted. Weapons had more range, shields held longer, engines pushed harder. The Xerax attack was repelled with minimal losses. "How is this possible?" Vex Lin asked his tactical officer. The simulation predicted we would lose at least 12 ships. The performance exceeded all parameters, the officer replied. Our engineers believe the ships are simply functioning better than expected. What the Vornax didn't know was that humans embedded in their military infrastructure had been quietly enhancing their capabilities for decades. Today's demonstration was carefully planned, a way to show their value without revealing their methods. In the Assembly's central world, Supreme Coordinator Vextor called an emergency council meeting. The hall filled with representatives from all 23 species of the Assembly. The human situation must be addressed, Vextor began. A century ago we dispersed them to prevent them from becoming a threat. Now they are everywhere in our society. An Illuri representative from a species known for diplomacy spoke up. The humans have proven valuable. Our border defenses function better than ever. Trade has increased. Many worlds once considered uninhabitable now produce food and resources. That is exactly what concerns me, Vextor replied. They have adapted too well. They thrive where they should merely survive, and now we depend on them. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for greater integration of humans into assembly society. Others suggested stricter controls. The most extreme, led by Vextor, proposed what they called the final solution, the complete elimination of humans from the galaxy. No decision was reached. The council remained divided, but the debate itself was alarming enough that news of it spread through official channels. Olivia Bennett received the news in her laboratory on Tau Ceti. As one of the leaders of the human collective, she understood the danger. If the hardliners won the debate, humans everywhere would be at risk. We need to accelerate our plans, she told her team. The Assembly is starting to fear us again. One of her colleagues looked worried. We're not ready. The synchronization technology still has problems, and half our ships are incomplete. Olivia walked to the window and looked out at the heavy gravity world that had been her home since birth. Like all humans born on Tau Ceti, her body was stronger and denser than Earth-normal humans. The Assembly had placed people here thinking the harsh conditions would keep them weak. Instead, it had made them stronger. We've been preparing for 100 years, she said. We may not get another 100. If the Assembly decides to move against us, we need to be ready. She connected to the human collective and sent a message that would reach every human in the galaxy. Acceleration Protocol. Stage 2 begins now. Across thousands of worlds, humans received her message and understood. Projects that had been developing slowly now shifted into high gear. Hidden factories increased production. Secret training intensified. The silent revolution was entering its final phase. Back on Earth, now considered a backwater by the Assembly, old spacecraft buried beneath the surface were being recommissioned. The Assembly had grown complacent about monitoring the homeworld, believing it stripped of resources and talent. They didn't realize that Earth had become the most secretive research center for humanity's grandest project. Deep beneath the old city of Denver, enormous caverns housed ships unlike any the galaxy had seen. Built with technology developed across 100 human worlds, these vessels were designed not just for space travel, but for something more. Something connected to the ancient artifacts Greg Winters had discovered decades earlier. As humans everywhere prepared, the Assembly remained unaware of the true extent of human cooperation and advancement. They saw only compliant workers and productive colonies. They didn't recognize that their decision to exile humanity from Earth had set in motion the very future they feared. Humans were no longer just surviving among the stars. They were getting ready to reshape the galaxy. They exiled Earth. Now humanity dominates the stars. Part 4. The Awakening. 150 years had passed since humanity's exile from Earth. The universe was about to witness something extraordinary. At the Assembly's Deep Space Research Station near the galactic core, alarms blared through the corridors. Scientists of various species rushed to monitoring stations. The supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy was behaving strangely. Another pulse detected, reported a Vornax scientist. The fifth one this month. The station's director frowned at the readings. These energy signatures match nothing in our records. Paul Martinez, the human science officer on the station, studied the data carefully. He knew what no one else did, that these pulses of exotic radiation weren't random. They were increasing in both strength and frequency, following a pattern that human scientists had been tracking secretly for years. More importantly, while the radiation disrupted assembly technology, it seemed to strengthen the neural connections of humans. The human collective network grew more powerful with each pulse. We should evacuate non-essential personnel, Paul suggested. If these pulses continue to intensify, the station's shielding might fail. The director hesitated. The station was the assembly's most advanced research facility. Abandoning it would be a serious loss. But before he could decide, the sensors detected something new. Massive radiation surge approaching, a technician called out. Impact in 3 minutes. The director gave the evacuation order, but it was too late. The wave of energy from the black hole reached the station faster than predicted. Systems shut down across the facility. Artificial gravity failed. Life support began to falter. In the chaos, Paul gathered the human crew members. Through their neural implants, they communicated silently, coordinating their efforts while the aliens around them panicked. Remember your training, Paul told his team through the network. This is what we prepared for. The humans moved with surprising coordination. While the aliens struggled with malfunctioning equipment, the humans seemed to know exactly what to do and where to go. They manually restarted critical systems and repaired damaged components with remarkable efficiency. 6 hours later, when assembly rescue ships arrived, they found the station damaged but operational. Most importantly, all crew members, alien and human, had survived. How did you manage this? The rescue team leader asked the station director. The director looked at Paul and the human crew members. The humans, they saved us. They worked together in ways I've never seen before. News of the incident spread quickly through assembly channels. It could not be hidden or downplayed. Questions arose about the true capabilities of humans. Some assembly citizens began to wonder if the long-standing restrictions on humanity were justified. Meanwhile, on Earth, now a quiet backwater, activity was increasing beneath the surface. In hidden facilities around the planet, humans were preparing for the next phase of their plan. Maria Cole walked through an enormous underground hangar where workers prepared ships unlike any the assembly had ever seen. These vessels were designed to harness the exotic particles humans could now manipulate through their enhanced neural connections. Final systems check complete on the first fleet, her assistant reported. All 20 ships are ready. Maria nodded. As Earth's coordinator in the human collective, she had overseen the secret rebuilding of humanity's homeworld. The assembly thought Earth was depleted of resources and talent. They had no idea that the planet had become the center of humanity's most ambitious projects. And the synchronization technology? She asked. Fully operational. 100 pilots can link simultaneously. This was the key to humanity's new power. Through their neural implants and the enhanced connection created by the black hole's radiation, humans could now work together in perfect harmony, their minds linked, but still individual. It gave them capabilities the assembly's technology couldn't match. Across the galaxy, Olivia Bennett and her team on Tau Ceti monitored the increasing pulses from the galactic core. As a leading scientist in the human collective, she had devoted her life to understanding the connection between human neural patterns and the exotic radiation. The ancient artifacts are responding to the pulses, one of her colleagues reported. The energy signatures match exactly. Olivia studied the data carefully. Greg Winter's discovery a century ago had been just the beginning. Since then, humans had found hundreds of similar artifacts scattered across the galaxy. They were pieces of a vast mechanism, one that responded to human thought patterns. The black hole isn't naturally malfunctioning, Olivia realized. It's being influenced by us, by the collective consciousness of humanity spread across the stars. The ancient race that created the artifacts had understood something about humans, that even humans themselves were only beginning to grasp. The unique structure of the human brain, combined with their capacity for both individual thought and collective action, allowed them to influence these exotic particles in ways no other species could. And now, with billions of humans connected, through the network, their combined influence was affecting the very center of the galaxy. On the Assembly homeworld, Supreme Coordinator Vextor called an emergency session of the Governing Council. Reports from across Assembly space described increasing anomalies, technology failures, unusual energy readings, and in every case it was humans who managed to solve the problems. We can no longer ignore the human question, Vextor declared. They are changing, evolving in ways we cannot predict or control. Some council members argued for patience, pointing to the valuable role humans played in Assembly society. Others sided with Vextor, fearing that the ancient prophecy about humanity was coming true. We must act now before it's too late, Vextor insisted. The final solution must be implemented immediately. After hours of debate, the council voted. By a narrow margin, they approved Vextor's plan. A sterilization campaign against human worlds. Assembly warships would target human population centers with a virus that would prevent reproduction. Within 1 generation, the human problem would be solved forever. The Assembly thought their decision was secret. They didn't realize that humans had infiltrated every level of their government. Within minutes of the vote, the human collective knew exactly what was coming. On a small monitoring outpost near the edge of Assembly space, Peter Young received the alert. He immediately sent a coded message to Earth. Storm approaching, shelter protocol active. In underground bases on Earth and hidden facilities across human colonies, final preparations began. Ships that had been built in secret were made ready. Weapons that used the exotic particles were powered up. The human response would not be what the Assembly expected. The moment humanity had prepared for during 150 years of exile had arrived. The Assembly had meant to contain and eventually eliminate what they saw as a dangerous species. Instead, they had created exactly the future they feared. Humanity was awakening to its full potential, and the galaxy would never be the same. They exiled Earth, now humanity dominates the stars. Part 5. Dominance through Wisdom. 200 years after the exile, the Assembly launched their attack. Massive warships appeared over human colonies across the galaxy, their mission to release a virus that would end humanity without destroying the valuable infrastructure humans had built. On New Eden, children playing in fields looked up as the ships darkened the sky. On Tau Ceti, miners emerged from tunnels to see the threat above. On 1,000 worlds, humans faced what seemed to be extinction. Supreme Coordinator Vextor watched from the command ship orbiting Proxima B, the first colony humans had established. "Begin the operation," he ordered. "No delays." The Assembly ships opened their launch bays. But before they could release their deadly cargo, something unexpected happened. From beneath the surface of every human world, ships rose into the sky. Not primitive vessels, but sleek craft unlike anything the Assembly had ever seen. These ships glowed with a strange blue light as they positioned themselves between the Assembly fleet and the colonies below. Vextor stared at his tactical display in shock. Where did they get these vessels? How did they hide them from us? Across the galaxy, a similar scene played out as hidden human fleets emerged to confront the Assembly attack. The humans had known this day would come and had prepared for generations. Laura Stevens sat in the command chair of the lead Earth ship, her mind connected to the human collective. Through neural synchrony, she and her crew operated their vessel as a single organism, their thoughts flowing together to control systems far more complex than any individual could manage. "All ships report ready," her communications officer said. Laura nodded. "Open a channel to the Assembly flagship." On the main screen, Vextor's face appeared. The Vornax leader looked both angry and confused. "This is Commander Laura Stevens of Earth," she said calmly. "We know why you're here and what you plan to do. We ask you to withdraw immediately." Vextor's large eyes narrowed. "You have no right to make demands. The Assembly has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. Your species has been judged too dangerous to continue. Laura's expression remained calm. The ships you see before you are only a fraction of our fleet. We have vessels positioned throughout Assembly space. If you attack any human world, we will have no choice but to defend ourselves. Your bluff is obvious, Vextor replied. Even with these ships, you cannot hope to defeat the Assembly. Without warning, the Assembly flagship fired its main weapons at Laura's vessel. Energy beams that could split a planet struck the human ship and passed through it as if it wasn't there. That was not a weapon, Laura explained. It was a demonstration. Our ships operate using the exotic particles your scientists have been unable to understand. Your weapons cannot harm us. To prove her point, human ships across the galaxy began to move, passing through Assembly vessels like ghosts, appearing and disappearing as they manipulated the particles humans had learned to control through neural synchrony. On Vextor's command ship, systems began to fail. Weapons went offline. Engines shut down. The entire vessel drifted powerless in space. Similar scenes unfolded across Assembly space as human ships neutralized the attack fleet without firing a single shot. 2 centuries of preparation had given humanity capabilities the Assembly could not comprehend. Laura opened a channel to all Assembly ships and worlds. Her message was broadcast on all frequencies. We could destroy you, she said. But that's not our way. We choose cooperation over dominance. For 200 years we have lived among you, worked with you, learned from you. We have no desire for revenge or conquest. In Assembly Council chambers, representatives watched in shock as human ships appeared in orbit around their capital, world. The entire Assembly military had been neutralized in less than an hour. How is this possible? One council member asked. They were scattered across thousands of worlds. How could they coordinate such an action? The answer came when Olivia Bennett, now an elderly scientist and leader in the human collective, addressed the council directly. The truth has been before you all along, she explained. The ancient prophecy was correct but misinterpreted. Humans do possess a unique ability, not just our adaptability or technological innovation, but our capacity for both individual thought and collective action. She showed them the artifacts Greg Winters and others had discovered over the decades. These were left by a race that came before even the Assembly. They foresaw their own extinction and identified humans as the species most likely to both survive and preserve the diverse cultures of the galaxy. The artifacts scattered across the galaxy were meant to be found by us. The black hole's radiation was meant to awaken our neural connection. This was all part of a plan set in motion long before humanity even left Earth. As the council listened, Olivia revealed the full extent of human development over the past 2 centuries, how exile had forced them to adapt to environments across the galaxy, how the need to communicate across vast distances had awakened latent abilities in the human mind, how their connection to the exotic particles had grown stronger with each generation. We don't want to rule the Assembly, she concluded. We want to transform it. In the days that followed, a historic agreement was reached. The Assembly was dissolved and reformed as the Galactic Cooperative, with all species represented equally. The restrictions on human movement and development were lifted. The knowledge humans had gained was shared freely with all species. Some Vornax, including Vextor, refused to accept the new reality. They retreated to isolated worlds, convinced that humans would eventually become the tyrants they had always feared. But most Assembly species embraced the change, recognizing that humanity offered something they had never considered: progress through cooperation rather than control. 1 year after the failed Assembly attack, a ceremony was held on Earth. Representatives from all species gathered to witness the dedication of a monument in the place where aliens had first landed 2 centuries earlier. It was a simple stone marker with words in both human and Assembly languages. They meant it as exile. We embraced it as opportunity. Laura Stevens, now leading the Cooperative's Exploration Division, stood before the crowd. 200 years ago, humanity was confined to one world. The Assembly thought by exiling us, they would prevent us from reaching the stars. Instead, they spread us across the galaxy, where we developed in ways impossible had we remained on Earth. She looked up at the sky, where ships from 100 worlds orbited peacefully. We don't dominate the stars through conquest or control. We dominate through wisdom, the wisdom to understand that true strength comes from unity, not division. The wisdom to see that diversity creates resilience. The wisdom to choose cooperation over conflict. As night fell, the gathered species watched as the stars came out. Among those distant lights were thousands of human colonies, each unique, each contributing to the greater whole. What began as punishment had become humanity's greatest gift. The assembly had exiled Earth, and now humanity shaped the stars, not as conquerors, but as connectors of worlds and species, fulfilling a destiny written in the fabric of the universe long before humans first looked up at the night sky and dreamed of what might be.